What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be making a predator biomask. I happen to put some tusks and spikes and other things on this one, but the actual basic template makes one that is very similar to the original Predator film, for example, the 1987 Predator film. Now, in this video, I don't go into how I make the dread-like appendages that come off the back here, or the frill, but I actually cut that out of my old Predator mask from an older video. So I will link that part 2 from that video in the description below, because that will explain to you how I did this part. It's literally no different because it's the exact same piece. It took so long to make all these, I didn't want to go through and do it again, but I did want a mask that was much more traditional. This one, for the meantime, is going to go up on my wall, probably. I don't know exactly 100% what I'm going to do with it. I'm thinking about purchasing a latex Predator mask that just has the mandibles and the face and attaching magnets, so I can just clip this over it, take it off as needed, but that's all something for the future. In the meantime, it's just going to go up on my wall. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into the build. Alright, so first things first, I took all of my Predator pattern pieces and traced them out onto some 5/16 foam mat, which I picked up at a hardware store. The particular one I got mine at was Harbor Freight. It was $10 for 6 square feet. And you're going to need one number 1 piece, one number 2, one number 4, 2 number 3s, 2 number 5s, and 2 6s. Each of the doubles, you trace one, flip it over, and then trace the second one. And as far as piece 7 and 8 goes, 7 is on 5mm UVA craft foam, and 8 is on 3mm UVA craft foam. I'm going to go ahead and cut these out and start shaping and gluing them together. Alright, first I'm taking piece number 1 and my heat gun, and I'm going to start heating this up. As I heat this up, I can begin to shape it and make it rounded. I'm going to have to heat both sides and kind of do this back and forth and work it with my hands until I get the shape that I want. Now that I have a nice curved domed shape into this, I'm going to take some contact cement here, and I'm going to glue the number 1 to the number 2, starting at the edge and working around evenly to both sides, trying to get the slight upward angle on it as I glue it. Alright, I glued 1 and 2 together by first matching up this end here, easing it around, making sure I had it centered, and following it back through, and as I did, it flared back up to meet this. So it starts off flared here at the end and goes level, and in the front, I used my heat gun to warm up this area and bend this flush here. Now, whenever I did this, it did leave somewhat of a gap, but I used a hot glue gun to fill that gap in to ensure that this will hold its shape and this won't go flat or come up any different or anything like that. It is now firmly held in place. And next, I have my 2 number 3 pieces. I have already heated them, and I'm going to glue them on, and I'll come back and show you how I did that. And I'm going to glue on the number 4 as well. Okay, so I took my heat gun here and heated up the number 5 piece, and I have put some shape into it. Where this little rounded end here is, I've, as you see, curved it up and then back down and out somewhat, and then leveled it out on the top. And I have my number 3 pieces in, and the 4 I simply heated and bent right where this top angle is, straight across, and glued that on. And now that I have heated my 5 piece, I'm going to go ahead and, starting with this edge here, start from the top, work my way down, and then stretch and pull this around and glue it up into here. And for comparison here, you can see a flat 5 that I haven't actually heated or done anything to versus this one that I've heated and shaped. It really makes all the difference in the world. Now, for these 3 pieces, I glued them in offset, and I filled them in with super glue, just like I did up here. But the way I glued them in is, you can see there's a slight offset as I glued them in, but then I curved them around and literally glued them flat to here. They transition from being glued flat to this, and at about the midpoint here, they come back out and meet up with the actual edge instead of the actual flat bottom. Okay, now that I have the 2 number 5 pieces glued on, this is starting to look much more like an actual predator mask. Now, as I said before, I started here, gluing along this edge on either side. I did one side first, and then I pulled it around and hooked it into there where the little cut line is, and matched that up and glued it up underneath the actual edge of the top part of the helmet here, and then did the same exact thing over here. Now on the bottom there will be 2 little overlapping points. I curved these over and glued them to the bottom because that'll give the last little extra bit of shape that you need. But if you don't like them or you find that annoying or you don't feel like going through that, you can just snip it off. But it is there for a reason. It is to be curved under and glued on. What I got left now is the 2 6 pieces for either side, and the 7 and the 8, and the 6s are going to be lined up and glued along either side of there. Alright, and with the 6 pieces lined up and glued onto the sides here, technically you could say they're not 100% necessary, but the way I glue them on, they have a slight edge coming out on either side here. And that's to give them a little bit of definition and look more like armor plating. And it also acts as a guide for where my number 7 piece is going to go, which is going to be the extension that comes out for the targeting system. And it also serves the other side for that piece of cable that's going to come out. Next thing I did was took some of the same tubing that I used in the last Predator wrist blade video that I did. And the same as that, cut it down the center and then cut it into essentially an oval. Glued it on, and then I took an X-Acto knife and I just simply cut around this and then used my heat gun to cause the cut to expand and give it more definition and have it stick out more than just a plain cut. Okay, I've taken the number 7 piece here and I heated it and folded it straight down the center. I angled off these edges so that it will fit flush whenever I glue it on. When I put on the number 8 piece, glued directly on the front. Now, there's several ways you could go with this. In the first one I made, I just quite simply took an inexpensive flashlight like this, and I cut a hole in the side and I just had the flashlight sticking out of it from the inside of the mask poking out. Another option is you seat this in place here, glue it in, and then once it's there, you can just paint 3 red dots on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here, trace around it. In the center of it, I'm going to cut a hole so this can poke out from the inside. And I'm going to poke 3 holes into this number 8 piece so that the light can shine through it. Okay, so there is my tracing of the number 7 and 8 piece combined, and then there's the hole that I cut out so I can just stick my flashlight through. Now I'm not going to permanently attach the flashlight in here for several reasons. One, this is a cheap dollar store flashlight. If I can't find the batteries, the exact size watch batteries to replace it with, then it's kind of useless. It's pretty bright though, so that's nice. I am going to take a red Sharpie and color over the LEDs red, and I'm also probably going to find a piece of clear plastic to put over this, which I will then color red as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and take some contact cement and put this piece in place and poke 3 holes in it. I have the lights in it, which are shining out reddish because not only did I color the, although this is showing up a lot more purple on camera, whereas when I look at it with the naked eye, it looks more pink. That's weird. But either way, I took and I colored the entire front of this with a Sharpie Extreme. I colored the LEDs, and then I took some tape and put over it and used the Sharpie Extreme to color that. I'm going to go ahead and leave this out for now. because I'm going to go through and do some sanding on a bunch of these different seams with my Dremel. Alright, I used my Dremel to sand this down. The only area that really needed sanding was right up here. On these seams, I just sanded it to round it off so that it would blend in better, look more natural. The other seams and lines were pretty intentional, so you wouldn't have to sand it. And now what I've done is I've taken a pattern piece like this a while ago from a previous mask, but you take this pattern piece and you apply contact cement to the edges. Whenever you curl it up, it forms a fang that looks like this. And since I already had these made and I wasn't using the piece anymore, I just ripped them off. And they're going to get glued onto the front here. And over here I also have this little Pac-Man looking piece, and I put contact cement on the inside of this V, let it sit for 15 minutes, and whenever I put it together, it forms these little spikes. And these little spikes are going to get glued along this top part up here. Both of the tusks on, and 5 spikes on each side on the top. Of course, you can do whatever you want, or just not do that at all, even. And has this nice slick black look because I just coated it with a couple nice thick coats of plasti dip. This is to seal the foam so that I can then paint on it. And once this dries, I will be once again off camera because I'm just spraying it black essentially, and it's already black. I'm going to use some Createx airbrush paint that I mix with Mod Podge and thin out, and I'll be spraying that on to give it a nice gloss black. Alright, now that the black has had time to dry and has a nice gloss coating, I have taken some Wicked colors from Createx airbrush colors, Wicked Silver, thinned it out pretty well, and I'm going to go ahead and spray over the black. Okay, I also took the airbrush and added some white to the tusks here. And now all these studs I put on, I have a brush here that I dipped into some Folk Art Inca Gold. And then I brush off the excess so that I can come up here and just dry brush some gold onto this one here. And I'm also, of course, going to do the other ones as well. I just don't want the gold to be too regular or too thick, because then it was going to look tacky. But I also did not want to use the airbrush for this either. And I'm also going to apply some gold on the front of this as well. Alright, now that I have everything all painted up, I'm going to go ahead and use some high gloss clear coats and make this nice and shiny. Alright, the clear coat has had plenty of time to dry, and I had some extra scrap leather laying around, and I cut off a couple of strips just long enough that I glued underneath with some super glue, wrapped around, and then glued back under to make it look as if that is holding it on instead of the ugly amount of contact cement and super glue it actually took to glue these on. And now all it's left to do is throw in the light and check out how it looks. Alright, so the lights are in, and this is pretty much finished up to this point. Now, I have another one over here that I made previously off the same exact patterns. Obvious differences are tusks, no tusks. I got some claw marks here from battle damage and none here. I have a clan symbol that I used a wood burner to burn into this area here. Over here there's nothing, spikes, no spikes. I mean, differences are obvious. Now, as far as how I made the dread-like appendages and the frill back here, I actually did that well over a year ago, and it's actually in a part 2 of a previous Predator video where I made a mask. So I'm not actually going to put, this is going on my wall, by the way, I'm not actually going to put the part of the alien's head and the dreads and all that stuff, because I've already done it, and this is my finished mask for my current cosplay. So this is what I'm going to be wearing, and this is going on my wall. And how I made the lenses for this one, I actually used the top of a Mountain Dew 20 ounce, and this mesh here is from a old laundry basket that I had that got broke down. Now, understand that the actual head of the Predators is huge because there's a human head inside of all that latex and makeup and stuff. So the only other challenge then that's really left, let me take this off here, is to pad the inside of the mask so it'll actually sit on your head. And to show you the inside here, I had to put a fair amount of padding. Like, there's just blocks of foam that match up to my cheeks, and then probably about 1.5 inches of foam that goes right in between my eyebrows, and then up here to keep it up off the top of my head. And that's just to make sure that this mask fits on me correctly and looks right. So that's the other challenge then you have to come up with, is building up the back piece here, making your dreads. Or another option, like Cosplay you mentioned, is he wants to just get a latex mask, and once he pads out and fills out the inside so it fits him tightly, he's going to put magnets on the mask and magnets on his biomask, so that if he wants, he can just clip it onto the front or take it off. And that is a rather common practice. Some people end up removing the actual face of the latex Predator mask. Others leave the face in. But either way, just keep in mind whenever you get a latex mask, usually, especially if you order it, it's pretty beat up. You usually have to fill up certain parts of it with things like expanding foam, etc., to get it to hold its shape well. But aside from things like that, this is pretty much going to wrap it up for the biomask video. Hopefully this gave you all some ideas. Like I say, keep in mind, this is like a basic template that you can do anything with. I thought about actually doing the mouth more like the fugitive Predator from the new film The Predator, but I did not. But once again, you could take this basic pattern, tweak it, and make something that looks more like that. Once you wanted to get into something like the Falconer Predator or the Berserker, you're going a little more complex. Of course, I did throw in elements from the Falconer here, and I wanted to put some little spikes, kind of reminiscent, but not really quite of, I believe, Wolf. But yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and let's go to the outro. So that pretty much wraps it up for that video. Hopefully this will give you some ideas for your own Predator cosplay or Halloween costume. It is a lot of fun to make these. I can make them pretty quick in about a day or so. Bust the whole thing out, which is pretty nice in comparison to some other projects. But what's actually really time consuming and slow for me was making all of these. So much quicker to make the biomask, I feel, than it is to do like 60-some dreads out of backer rods or window insulation. And of course, last video was the wrist blades. And next I'm going to be doing the feet, some spats that are going to act as the Predator's boots or shin guards or whatever you want to call it. And I'm also going to do the left gauntlet, which has the little exploding device mechanism. What it's actually going to be is just a place to put my phone into. That if I want to, I can play that sequence, provided I can find a good video that'll fill out that space. and gloves as well, because I have to make predator hands. So that's all going to be stuff in the future. And once that's done, I'll get on to some different projects and some requests. I did have a lot of requests for the mask, so that's part of the reason why I did this video and why you're getting 2 videos in a week instead of just 1, because it was much quicker just to do this. I just wanted to get it out of the way. Everybody keeps asking too, since Halloween is coming up, and I think they want a less expensive alternative that they could craft themselves for their Halloween costume that doesn't involve spending a fairly decent amount of money on, Predator costumes. If you look at them, really get up there. And a lot of stuff I wanted to buy, I ended up not buying and having to make. Like, I just wanted to buy latex legs and arm pieces, and it was so expensive that I thought I need to figure out how to make this out of foam and then pass it on to all of you. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, please do subscribe, as it does help me out a lot. And all your continued support is the reason why I continue to do this. I know my videos aren't as fun or flashy as others, but they are meant to be an exchange of information, and I am working on trying to get them a little bit more fast-paced. And that's part of the reason why I broke them up into segments instead of just doing one giant long video. So, as always, everyone out there, thank you. Good luck on your cosplays and your builds, and as always, have a great day.